Hi, I'm Trooper Smacka.
Hi, I'm Trooper Wellman,
Please stay tuned for a behind-the-scenes look at being a state trooper.
and together we can make a difference.
Here we are live at the 360.Vegas studios with Trooper Talk with Andrew Bennett. Andrew, you're not a trooper.
I'm not a trooper.
I don't understand.
Yes.
So one of the things that we do on Trooper Talk is we try to put people in the life of a trooper. Because one of the things that's very important is that we try to save one life. If we can save one life, then we can move to the next, which is the second. We've talked about you a few times on the Trooper Talk, and so it's an honor for you to be here. So I want you to know I appreciate it very much.
Thank you for having me.
Please tell us who you are and, why you're here to talk to us.
Sure. So my name is Andrew Bennett. I was born and raised in Las Vegas, and I'm currently the director of the Clark County Office of Traffic Safety. I've only been there for about 5 weeks. The last 6 years, though, I was at the Nevada Department of Public Safety, now the state police, within the state highway safety office, which was located there. And so for the last 5 years, I was their PIO, and I worked day-to-day with Trooper Smacka, Trooper Wellman, Trooper Broadcheck, which are all reoccurring folks here on the show. And my main focus the last 12, almost 13 years has been exclusively traffic safety. I now, being within the county, it's a little bit different with policies and procedures and trying to make sure that our systems are aligned. But the last 5 years, I ran the state's traffic safety program, Zero Fatalities. And, the opportunity to come on this show or to talk to anyone about traffic safety is the ultimate goal.
And so one of the things that we always come to is the fact of speed, right? So everybody's guilty of driving over the speed limit, you know what I mean? But the speed limit is there for a specific reason, right? Can you describe to us what the speed limit is there for?
Absolutely. So when we approach traffic safety, we do it with what we call the 6 C's of traffic safety. We always start with equity, and then we move on to engineering. And engineering is the most important component of traffic safety. If we don't start with a great foundation of our roads being designed properly, we're setting ourselves up for failure. And so when we look at the road, our engineers are world-class engineers. We have some of the greatest engineers here in the state of Nevada and at the county. And they look at all the aspects, the width of the road, the lighting of the road, the occupancy of the road, what zoning is next to it. Are we next to a school? Are we next to a business district? How much access? How many left turns are there going to be? And that all is taken into consideration with the speed limit. And so if we have a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit, we need the people to go 45 miles an hour. But unfortunately, we've seen a prevalence of people going these extreme speeds on our local roadways, including our freeways, in excess of 100 miles an hour. We saw the stat that the RJ published just the other day. 5,100 people were cited across our state last year for going over 100 miles an hour, and that's truly unacceptable.
One of the things that we talk about, which we show always the speeds on the troopers catch everybody, right, is the fact that on the roadways, when you're going the wrong way driving, the things in the roadway are red, right? So a lot of people don't understand that. Can you explain when you're going one way, it's one color, and when you're going the other?
Sure. So there's quite a few signs that you'll have to ignore, and signs being literal as well. But there's several different indicators that you're going to have to ignore when you're going wrong way to lack that understanding that you're going wrong way. Number one is the signage. There's always wrong way signage on every overpass and on-ramp and off-ramp.
Huge sign.
Huge signs.
Right? Red,
Huge.
huge,
Yeah,
right?
Red and white. You can't miss them.
Right.
And then, there's signage usually down the ramp. And then now recently with innovations through engineering, if you're going the wrong way, and sometimes if you're in the far left lane on like a 3 or 4 lane side road, you can sometimes see it across from you, that your headlights will actually shine back red because the dots coming back are red because they want to give you that visual feedback that you're going the wrong way. But unfortunately, the reason why some of these things aren't making the difference is because all too often these people are impaired. All the time they're impaired. Like 90 to 100% of the time we have data that shows they're impaired. And so anytime that you happen to make the wrong turn, like I've done it downtown before, You have a lot of those one-way streets. You might take that accidental left when you shouldn't have. You know immediately if you're sober. You know you're doing the wrong thing. And
All the cars are pointed that way.
Correct. Yeah, you're in a bad spot. You know, and so we want to make sure that we have that opportunity, you know, to give every feedback that we can, and we do. We just need to make sure that people are driving sober.
And so when it comes to impaired driving, you know, one of the things that we talk about is the fact that there are legal things in Nevada that you can take other than consuming alcohol, but and even prescription medication, but overdoing it or taking it in a bad way is not right, and that leads to impairment, right?
Exactly. We live in, I always say we live in the greatest state in the world, and we live in the greatest county here. You know, like we live in the entertainment capital of the world, and we're proud of that. And we want people to have an incredible time here. And we're not saying that you can't. We're just asking that you do it responsibly and you don't get behind the wheel.
And specifically in Las Vegas, there are so many ways, you know, that you don't have to get behind the wheel. We always talk about, right, all the ride sharing, the taxis, that you know, and all these things that there really is no reason to be behind the wheel of impairment.
Not at all. And during the Super Bowl, we, the county, Clark County, partnered with Mothers Against Drunk Driving, Anheuser-Busch, and Uber to provide a pretty substantial discount code. And unfortunately, Metro arrested, and our partners at the Highway Patrol as well, arrested around 50 drivers on Super Bowl for driving impaired because people didn't take advantage of those offers, and there truly is no excuse.
And when people make the wrong choice, you know, we always show the picture, you know, they're going to a place that they don't want to be. They're going in handcuffs, they're going in a trooper or a patrol car, and it's going to cost them a lot of money and time, right?
And the other option is a body bag. You know, they could ultimately, that decision could cost them their life, and all too often it costs someone else their life as well. And so none of those are winning options. We want people to have a great time. You know, plan ahead, use public transportation, get an Uber, Lyft, or taxi, and you'll get home safely at the end of the day. And those are all things you can avoid. Arrest is your best option, to be honest. You know, a simple DUI. But at the end of the day, that's going to be about 10 to 15 grand, and you're lucky if you don't take someone else's life, including your own.
And that is one of the things that we always talk about, the human side, that, you know, what you're doing is not only directly affecting you, but like, you know, somebody else is not coming home to dinner and there's not having breakfast. And so, you know, their life is over. And so it's just a horrible thing.
Well, and that isn't a hypothetical. You know, that's exactly why I'm here today is, you know, when you go into any school and you ask, you know, what do you want to be when you grow up? Have you ever heard a traffic safety professional? No. Right. You know, that's not something people want to be. And, you know, that's what I do. I've never done anything else. I've only worked in traffic safety. And it's because I received that knock on the door from the Highway Patrol letting me know that my sister wouldn't be making it home one evening because someone got on the wrong way on the 215. And so these aren't hypotheticals. You know, my sister, you know, left this earth because of one man's decision to drive impaired.
And so we're going to get into that with a picture, but you want to go into a little bit more detail?
Sure. You know, it's one where, you know, you never expect that traffic safety will impact you. And that's one of the things that we're currently struggling with is we can talk about this all day, but the reality is people refuse to believe that it can be them. And my family learned the hard way of that it very simply can be you. And, you know, I was a freshman here at Coronado High School. My sister was a freshman at UNLV, and she was simply on her way home from dance practice. And, you know, when someone goes the wrong way on the freeway, that's a deadly combination. And over the last 12 years, I've pursued the answer of why. Why did that happen? Why did it happen to my sister? Why do people drive impaired? And I have some of those answers now. And so the reality is we have to go try to fix this to prevent that knock on the door from ever occurring again.
All right, well, let's get to some pictures and we'll see what we have, okay?
Yeah.
One of the things that is very important when we talk to the troopers is when one of the troopers pass or they're in a succession in line and they're by themselves, I always ask the things that no one else would ever ask because I feel that those are the things that really gets into the minds of the people who are watching to never go through this. And so I'm going to take you through a few things. When it comes to you seeing this as you weren't a child, but you certainly were in the growing stages of your life, right? What are you thinking in your mind at this point?
Well, and this one specific picture is one that I've kept in my office or wherever I've gone, because this is like, to this day, this is a picture that breaks my heart. You can see the pain on all of us. You have my dad on the far left, obviously me, and then my mother and my sister's best friend, Jordan. And I think that we were in the hospital for a little bit. It wasn't instant. So at that point, your brain is sitting there fighting. You're looking for your hope. You're in that ultimate pursuit of hope and faith. And so when, someone that you love passes, that's a forever. And it's very immediate. And this was a vigil that we were at in the courtyard at UNLV. And one of the things that still amazes me to this day, because I have people all the time come and tell me a random story of, how my family's story impacted them forever. But hundreds of people showed up to this, and that's something that I'll never forget. And it's one of the reasons why I love this city so much. And it's, this crash happened on a freeway, which was obviously NHP's jurisdiction. And there was something special later about walking into that building every day. But this is a feeling that you never leave yourself. As long as I will be in traffic safety, and as long as I have my family close to me, this is a feeling that never, leaves you.
And do you personally, break down in the hospital? Do you break down later by yourself? How do you mourn?
So when you look at, there's moments so I'll answer that in two different ways, professionally and personally. Because I choose to torture myself every single day by working in traffic safety. I read the fatal reports. I responded to fatals for 3 or 4 years with Metro. You see the heartbreak that our community goes through, and I put myself in the middle of that. And very rarely do I professionally, get to a point where it's too much. The Henry Ruggs crash was one where, I lost it multiple times in probably those 7 days around that crash, because there was a lot of similarities. It was just a girl going home that was doing nothing wrong when someone, took her life on Rainbow. Mm-hmm. That one got me. Levi Echenike, who was a little 7-year-old boy who was on his way home from school 4 years ago. Royce Jones, his parents were racing on Rampart. Those are fatals that will ever, forever will stick with me. And it gets to a point where it becomes too much. But I've been lucky to surround myself with the most incredible people that I've could ever hope to be surrounded by. And I think that my mourning is conducted through my work, and the ability to try to prevent these tragedies from happening, or to having another family be in that position. There's no other greater pursuit than that.
And do you think that, because I'm sure you've saved lives before with what you've done and things of that nature.
I would hope.
Right. So do you think of your sister in that mindset, like that at least, it wasn't in vain in that way?
Absolutely. And it happens to be the one day I don't have it on me, but I carry my sister's driver's license with me every single day. And my pursuit of zero fatalities or safer roads at Clark County is always and will forever be in her name. Because again, it was a tragedy that was 100% preventable, that my family should have never been put in this position.
I agree. And that's why we got to save lives.
Mm-hmm.
So we have some pictures here, right? I'm sure you know about each one of these, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you talk to us about this picture here, and then we'll go here and we'll go around.
Top left, there's a few things there, because we're a little longer format, I can actually get into, which I appreciate. So this was this was the 1-year anniversary. The top left was the 1-year anniversary of the DUI strike team. Obviously DUI is passionate, is something I'm passionate about. I thought we could do DUI enforcement better. And I was lucky that we had some really visionary people that were willing to partner with me to try to get this done. Lieutenant Munoz at NHP, who's an incredible trooper and an incredible leader. Lieutenant Munson, Lieutenant Ficklin at Metro, and Dave Stoddard, the sergeant. We had this idea that we could streamline the process, get some people to focus on it. And the importance of this team was it was the first time that we had a full-time, multi-jurisdictional unit specifically focused on DUIs in Southern Nevada. That's never happened before. And we proved very quickly that that team of 8 had 1,000 DUI arrests in 1 year, which was about a quarter of all of Metro's DUI arrests that year. And it just proved, we also had a 68% of reduction in DUI fatalities that year as well, which isn't a fluke. There's no other reason that DUI fatalities should have gone down that year. People were rooting for it. You know, we did the hash marks on the side of the van, which you can kind of see behind them, like the old fighter jets or the football helmet stickers.
Oh, okay.
And you know, we gave some people some ownership.
Yeah.
And that was one where we had a lot of community buy-in, and I was extremely proud to stand there in front of everybody as not a trooper, you know, as a civilian member of the Department of Public Safety, to see what enforcement can do for our community. That was a very special day. I have that board in my office still. That's on that podium that all the members signed for me.
Yeah.
And that was a very special day.
Yeah. And what do we have here?
That one was the first parole hearing for the man that killed my sister. You have my parents in the front, you have a lot of friends and family, but one of the things that will forever stay with me is the amount of law enforcement with NHP and Metro that showed up. You know, you have Trooper Hickson, Trooper Broadchecks in the back corner, Trooper Smacka there in the middle as well, and some incredible officers from Metro. And to see that continued love and support that my family continued to receive, this was 7 years later after that crash. That took my sister, you know, to see the love and support that we still had was something special.
Yeah, and you know, the thing is that I love the fact of the same. That, you know, one of the things that we always talk about on Trooper Talk is that all the different agencies always come together. And so it's not just about one agency, it's, you know, they all work together. And so unfortunately when the Trooper Micah May had passed, you know, and so it's really wonderful to see. And so that's why I wanted to bring this in light as well, because this was a special moment.
No, absolutely. And, you know, just the meeting before I came here, I had the five agencies that have a traffic bureau, School Police, Boulder City, NHP, Metro, North Las Vegas, and Henderson 6. We were meeting, and you know, they come together, and we're quickly coming to a point where we're saying it's not okay that we're losing this many people, and they're working so hard and so diligently to make sure that we don't have that increase in fatalities again.
It's so important, you know what I mean? Like, it's so important. We have to stop people from doing all these things, you know, the impaired driving and the speeding. It's too much.
There's nothing more important. It's number one cause of death for most age groups here, and we have to do everything that we can.
Yeah.
Oh, real quick, if we have time.
Go.
Because this last one's important. Can you go back?
Yeah, I got it right here.
Yeah, real quick.
Yeah.
Because these three gentlemen were very important to my time, my life, but also during my time at at DPS.
Yes.
Far left, you have Captain Honey. He was the PIO.
Yes.
So all three of these gentlemen worked my sister's crash, and they were the last three that were still working at DPS. So Captain Honey was the PIO. And he was the one when we're sitting in the hospital room and we're on our iPhones, you know, trying to get as much information as we can.
Yes.
Trooper Honey, now Captain Honey, did an incredible job with the way he talked about, and it's something that I took with me as I became a spokesperson to make sure that you remember that the family is probably watching. And so Captain Honey was incredible. Captain Stunkel was the investigating sergeant of the crash. He was the fatal team lead for the crash. And Trooper Loy Hickson was the first responding trooper. He was the one that had to testify at the grand jury. He was the one that came to the hospital with us. And so all three of those gentlemen hold a special place in my heart. Not only, you know, the last 5 years or 7 years I worked at DPS, but for the last 12.
You know, it's really important, and I'm glad that you wanted to go back, because the personal relationships is very, very special. And so, you know, recently I went when Trooper Smacka became the sergeant, and it was wonderful because everybody was there and everybody stood together. And, you know, one of the things that I took away from that I thought was very special was that when they all spoke, they all talked about the mentorship. And so it wasn't about just the one trooper. It was about how do we make the entire branch and everything just that much better.
And, this is a story that I don't tell often, but then Sergeant Stunkel, now Captain Stunkel, it took 2 years to go to court. And he was the one that was going to have to represent the state in his investigation. 2 years later, he still broke down in tears. And to see that humanity behind the badge was something that you don't get to see often. And I know, because all three of us talk about it quite frequently. Still, my meeting this afternoon was with Captain Honey, was there representing NHP. It's something that that they carry with them every single day, and that's a burden that is beyond words. And so the fact that those three, I got to walk into the same building with them, was something incredibly special. And it's one of the only reasons I chose to work for DPS, was because you were walking into a building full of incredible people.
So we have had both Trooper Wellman and Sergeant Smacka not completely break down, but get very emotional when we've gone through certain pictures and stuff like that. And so that's really important for the viewers to see, because what we talk about is the fact that all the troopers and all the first responders, but how when they go and they see something as horrific as it is, that they actually have to go home to their loved ones and be like, oh, hi, everything's great, when, what they just saw or just witnessed could have just been absolutely horrific.
Absolutely, and all too often it is.
And so that's really special that you were able to do that, yeah. Total lives lost in January. Now, one is too many, right?
Correct.
And so we have pedestrians, we have people driving without seatbelts. Talk to us about what we have here.
So this was a fatal graphic that we started using to communicate this to the public. And it was important for me it's hard, and all too often we forget what these numbers represent. That 24 represents 24 lives that won't be with us tomorrow, and 24 families that are forever broken. But it was important for our public to take ownership of these numbers and what those numbers represent. So you can see the bulk majority of the problem is here in Southern Nevada and Clark County. Most of the counties were still at 0 in January, which is where you hope they would be. Impairment, speeding continue to be the top 2 causes of fatalities. 6 pedestrians. We're one of the deadliest counties and states for pedestrians. We have very long, fast, wide roads here. And I think we had 66 pedestrian fatalities last year, which is way too many. When I first started in traffic safety in 2009, we had 23 pedestrian fatalities annually. And we've had a year recently where we had 100. So we have a lot to work to do there, and that's why I keep that number up there. And then if anything, the unrestrained motorist is something that we can fix tomorrow. We just need people to buckle up. That number is going to go up rather dramatically with the data that will be released here in a few days. Because unfortunately, a lot of our fatalities in February and towards the end of January, they were unrestrained. But again, that 21 number down in Clark County, 9 lives came from one crash, one devastating crash in January. So,
because of speed.
Because of speed.
Let me ask you something about the pedestrian thing. So I don't drive the car when it's dark out, because too many people are running across the road in a non-crosswalk area in dark clothing or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Do you notice that the pedestrian goes up like before the daylight savings time? Right?
This is...
So that's like March 13th, I think, or it's coming right up.
It's one of the reasons why I would actually prefer that we get rid of daylight savings time. Our deadliest time for pedestrians is dusk to dawn, and when we change times in October, November, our pedestrian fatalities spike because
that's what I thought. Right.
Nobody's used to walking home at night, and nobody's used to people driving at night either.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, October, November, December, January is the most deadliest time that we have for pedestrians.
Yeah, it's very scary. You know what I mean? And so you can't. I mean, the crosswalks are so far. I mean, you can't.
You can't blame them for
Right.
because if you and I wanted to go across the street for lunch,
100%.
even though we're pretty close to the light here,
Right.
we're crossing the street where we
Right.
want to cross the street because especially when it's 110 out,
Yes.
are you going to walk an extra half mile to be able to use that crosswalk?
Just go like this.
Yeah,
Right.
And so and that's that's one of the things that we're looking at the county is making sure that we're dropping people off on the bus at the right area. Not doing a mid-block drop-offs where they have to walk a half mile to get to the.
Okay, that makes sense.
Everything's on the table right now.
Yeah, no, I never even thought of that because then they have to walk. Right.
But they're not going to.
Right, but they're gonna
They're just gonna go across the street.
Right,
And
100%.
if you're dropping off in the middle of the block,
Right.
and the reason we're just gonna get into it. The reason that they don't
Yeah.
is because they want the bus to be out of the way of traffic. Because the best place to drop them off would be before the intersection, but they don't. We don't
But
necessarily
then it
want
causes a traffic jam.
Correct.
Right.
But
okay.
our inconvenience might have to be sacrificed for safety, and that's something just as a society we're going to have to get used to.
Yeah.
We're going to drop some speed limits. And we're going to redesign some roads that might make people uncomfortable. With speeding, but we got to make sure that we get this number down.
Yeah, it's great to know that you're open.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? You're not a lot of people think that, when you get someone like yourself on here that it's scripted or that you're holding something back. It's nice to know that you're answering the questions and you're trying to give the right information so people can understand.
Well, and this is one thing too that everybody always gets shocked when I do this, but 702-860-4609 is my personal cell.
Yeah.
Literally my personal cell. And
You have a problem, call.
Yeah, no, because we want to know about it, and all too often people don't understand how government works, and they might be confused where someone can help them. So even if it's something that I can't help them with, I'll get them in touch with someone that they can. And same thing if you don't want to call Andrew.Bennett at clarkcountynv.gov is my personal email too, and we're gonna track it down.
Yeah, that's great. All right. Nevada State Troopers arrested this driver for suspicion of impairment. One of the things that doesn't matter what kind of car or truck or Jeep that you drive, right? It doesn't make a difference. If you are driving and you are impaired, you should not be on the road, right?
This is an extremely dangerous situation for the trooper and this person involved. It takes 1.5 miles to stop a train. And so they could have easily came through, and it could have, been extremely dangerous for the trooper and the impaired driver as well.
Unbelievable. Yeah, you know all about these things.
I got you.
Yeah. Troopers arrested a drunk driver that crashed this morning. All right, how about a .286?
Yep. So
What is the legal limit?
Legal limit in the state of Nevada, but we're going to take a second to talk about this limit, is .08.
Okay.
And that's what's called the per se limit. And in Latin, per se means just because. So just because you're over that .08 means it's pretty much a guaranteed DUI. In the state of Nevada, the officer or the trooper has the authority to arrest you at any limit. If they don't believe that you're able to safely operate that vehicle and that you are impaired regardless of what you blow on the PBT, you can be arrested at a .06. And so, those people that have the keychain breathalyzers, get in the Uber because, and so a few things here too.
Yeah, tell me.
It is one of the things about living in Las Vegas.
Yes.
We're a 24-hour town. You got to make sure that you protect yourself at all time, and you're a defensive and offensive driver. Not offensive, but play some offense while you're driving.
Of course.
But .28 is, three times legal limit. It's truly unacceptable. You have someone driving it looks like maybe a Mustang, possibly, maybe not, I don't know. But, again, that's a loaded weapon driving down the street when you have an impaired driver, at any moment. So always make sure you're paying attention. That's why we stress getting off your phone, making sure you're not reading a book, because you never know what's next to you or what's coming at you.
Trooper Wellman always talks about the driving with the 360.
Yep.
So you can see the rear view mirror and you can see all these different things. And it is one of the things that we talk about, that, just because somebody's DUI doesn't mean it's at 12 o'clock midnight.
Exactly.
It could be, 6 in the afternoon or whatever, you know what I mean? And so we need to stop these people, because when someone is this, drunk, I mean, you have no idea what's going on.
So the word of the year this year,
Yeah.
in 2022 here,
Yeah.
is accountability.
Accountability.
And there's some things that we're working on that
Tony, make sure you flash that, okay?
that we can't necessarily share yet, but from start to finish in the system, we're going to hold people accountable. And that there's, that's somewhat ominous, but, someone served that person to get to that level. We're going to start having that conversation. We're going to make sure that this DUI continues to be a DUI and doesn't get pled down to reckless. And so enforcement is just kind of the middle. You have legislation, and then you have enforcement, then you have prosecution, and then you have adjudication. And if all four of those aren't on the same page, our system's broken. So we're going to make sure that all four of those are aligned, and to make sure that, number one, this person doesn't have the opportunity to make that decision again, because it's not a mistake. That was a decision to get behind that wheel.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we also talk about, which is, when people have parties at their house, that they're also, responsible, before that person gets on the road. So, yeah, that's great that you're doing that. Wrong way driver was arrested for suspicion of impairment. How about a .24?
You definitely have a Mustang there now too.
Yeah,
so,
you definitely have a Mustang.
But so again, BAC, it's why they take these pictures is because we want to show people. Here's a great story. So right before I left, there's a training called a wet lab, and the new troopers, the cadets, need to be able to see impairment from start to finish and practice their field sobriety tests. And so my family wanted to go through it because, they were like, you mean, the state will get us drunk? And so basically, and
you can see.
And so what I was curious, because they don't get to see at what level they are necessarily. And so I asked, all the people in my group, and these are people that have gone through a horrible tragedy with me, all that. I asked them at what point, would you not drink? And all of them or not drive. And immediately, the default answer of my family and friends is going to be, after one, you don't drive.
Right.
But I was like, ignore that. At what point do you feel impaired? Everyone felt impaired at .05. Every single one of them, between .04 and .06, they all felt impaired, that they would be extremely uncomfortable driving. And so to see someone at a .24, you need to surround yourself with some better friends to make sure that they don't allow you to get in the car either. And that's an incredibly difficult conversation. Sometimes it might be a daughter telling a mom not to get behind the wheel. And those are incredibly difficult conversations that we've seen in the past. But to have someone at a .24 going wrong way in a decently, stocked, vehicle that could have the capability of going pretty quick, that's a deadly combination.
And so that's one of the things that I want to discuss too, is the fact that any car, generally speaking, can go 50 or 60 miles an hour.
Yep.
Right? Most cars can certainly do 85 or 90 miles an hour, or upwards of 100 miles an hour. And so all you need to do nowadays is just put your foot on the gas and hit drive. And so if you're not looking at the speedometer, that's what also makes that very easy to do, right?
Well, so again, not to geek out here, but so we had the NTSB come into town. That was a big deal, right? The feds came into town after that fatal times 9. Do you know what they were investigating by chance?
No, tell me.
They were investigating the prevalence of Dodge Challengers and Chargers being involved in fatal crashes, because that's a high-performance vehicle that's relatively affordable. It's on the lower end of the cost. It's not a Lamborghini. It's not a Ferrari. Those cars are, have some horsepower and have the speed. And so they're investigating the prevalence of these high-performance vehicles, these market high-performance vehicles being involved in fatalities, because all too often that speed is available. And yes, any car can go probably 100. Not every car can go 156 miles an hour, 141. And so they're definitely looking into that to see if that availability of that performance is an issue.
So we talk about that with Trooper Wellman and Sergeant Smacka, the fact of, that when you're driving at this type of speed, although the car can do it, they're not made to do that.
Nope.
And they may sound good and all these type of things, but Trooper Wellman always says, if you have the car and you can go that fast, just take it to the track.
Yeah.
And so these cars are not made to do 140 miles an hour and go around these turns and stuff like that. They're not made for it, and the tires and all that stuff, right?
And when you're at a .24, you're not capable. One of my favorite questions that we always ask teen drivers at a program that we have called Driver's Edge at the Speedway, is
yes.
give yourself a 1 to 10 on your driving ability. And these teens are giving themselves 9 and 10. So I like to think that it's Mario Andretti,
Right.
Jeff Gordon, and then John from Coronado High School.
Right.
That's not the case. And all too often these people are young. Are I would say it's 35 below is one of the or it's 18 to 35 is our demographic for wrong way impaired drivers mostly.
And at that age, there's nothing wrong with it, but generally you don't maybe have as much driving experience as someone who's a little bit older in that way.
Exactly, and I'm not blaming young people by any chance. There's because we want to make sure that young people are great. But yeah, it's a fact that you have less experience, and driving is one of those things where you learn something every day of not to do that.
And we know that someone can be an elder person or a young person, and they can still do bad things. So yes, I agree with you 100%. Mm-hmm. Think twice before getting behind the wheel. So one of the things that I wanted to show you that was very interesting of this is the patch.
Yes.
And so unfortunately, it is the Sergeant Ben Jenkins patch. And so the thing that I wanted to bring up to the fact of that is that he was doing nothing except being nice and doing his job. And so unfortunately, he lost his life. And so I wanted to bring that up as well as the fact of the DUI stuff.
So I actually took this picture. This was the DUI strike team, and so that's why you see a metro officer and a trooper.
Okay.
So anytime that you see those two working together, that usually means it's a strike team. And going to Sergeant Jenkins, that happened in the thick of COVID. And one of the greatest things to have the opportunity to do. It was incredibly sad that we had to do it, but to have been asked to produce the live stream for his funeral out in Elko, and to be able to show the world that funeral was very important. It's one of, if not the top thing I did at DPS aside from traffic safety.
So we talked to Sergeant Smacka, and we talked to Trooper Wellman, and that was one of the things that got them very emotional because they're alone. You know what I mean? And they're in their patrol car, and you know what I'm saying? And so when you see things like this, does it bring you tear-eyed to about your sister and stuff like that, or?
Oh, absolutely. And there's definitely a few things to say there, and there's things that I can say that they can't say because they work for the department. But we're asking these troopers, and I'll get to the emotional thing, but it's important to realize, for the public to realize, we're asking these troopers to do it for wages that qualify them for food stamps. And we have troopers out there that are alone for 200 square miles that we're asking to be the protectors of Nevada, and we can't give them a living wage. And that's something that we need to work on because these men and women that represent the Nevada Highway Patrol and all of DPS and the state police, they're doing incredible work, and they need to be, prime example, just in this picture, the metro officer is making 30% more than the trooper just because they don't have to pay their own retirement. And we're asking these people to do incredibly, dangerous work that ultimately has cost two troopers their lives in the last few years. And we really need to make sure that we support our troopers and give them everything to be successful. But it does break my heart every time that we have someone that chooses to do the wrong thing and behind the wheel impaired. Because again, this is a tragedy that was prevented because we had enforcement out there to get them off the road. But it's one where we need to make sure that we give them the opportunity to be successul.
Yeah, not to talk politics because we don't talk politics, but I did see that Governor Sisolak said that he wants to give them a raise.
That's great.
On his
state of the state.
On the state of the state, he did specifically put that in there that the Nevada State Police, he was going to, I don't know what it was, or you know what I'm saying, but so we want them all to make as much as we can because
Absolutely.
they are putting their lives on the line for us every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we don't really talk politics.
Well, it's not politics. That's just that's facts.
Yeah, facts.
We need to make sure that
our troopers are getting paid, compensated for as much as they can,
and to make sure we have enough troopers.
And to make sure we
have a staffing issue that needs to be addressed, and that's only going to be addressed through making sure they get paid the proper wage.
We talk about the DPS careers because we had Lieutenant Munoz on here, who was very passionate about the drug interdiction.
Yes.
And so and one of the things was the fact of the different careers, and when we talk with Trooper Wellman about the different places and careers that you can be in the DPS, that makes it very special too. You
I
know
mean,
what I mean?
it's unique.
Yeah.
It's unique to in our state. It's unique to DPS.
Yeah, like the Capitol Police and all that stuff.
Fire
yeah.
marshal.
Yeah. All that stuff.
Mm.
All right, so I don't know if you've ever watched Trooper Talk before, but let me tell you the situation. The situation is that when Trooper Wellman, unfortunately, has gone out to certain fatalities, we didn't realize it, but the first time she took a picture, she sent it to me, we put it on here, and she noticed the shoe. And so she said, oh, the shoe is, by somebody. And so every time we do the fatalities or we always show the shoe, and it's sort of an inside thing for the Trooper Talk to show that, that's somebody's life. And so that's somebody that's not coming home, right?
Yeah, there's been 2 or 3 pictures of shoes, and this is one that the school district posted, school district police posted yesterday, and the words that were with this post were incredible as well with, what's the cost. And all too often we see this. I actually did a campaign when I was over Zero Fatalities that was based solely around the shoes. It was an extremely powerful campaign called Epidemic, spelled EPED. And I was extremely proud of it because all too often when you talk to first responders, you always will hear about the shoes.
It's really tragic. So we always want to point that out because young or old, and unfortunately, when we talk about the Clark County School District Police, sometimes they're running between the crosswalks and stuff like that, and so it's not just an older person or whatever, I mean, so we want to protect all the children as well.
Exactly.
Officers will be coming together and joining forces to combat the speed.
Yes.
So I had the opportunity to hang out with a bunch of the motors with my car, and we did a funny video and all that type of stuff where we threw out a whole bunch of tickets and all this type of stuff. And so one of the things that's really important is the fact that everybody is combining forces because it's too much already.
Exactly. Well, and so everybody by the University Police were at my meeting today, and we were talking about, because one of the things that we're trying to change too is there's that idea that everybody speeds, right? We've said it a few times today. Not everybody is reckless, and we have to start going after those drivers that are extremely reckless. And again, going back to accountability, we need to make sure that those people understand that you can't be, you can't, you just can't. Period. And so there's a joining forces event going on right now for I think the next 2 weeks that all these agencies will be working together to make sure that we have that high visibility enforcement, to make sure that we have the ability to keep our roadways safe, and the public should understand that they're going to see an increase in presence from all these jurisdictions that's going to make the difference.
Yeah, and it's really important. And so one of the things that we talk about when it comes to the joining of the forces is they use LiDAR, right? And so they see you before you see them. So the fact of that you see a car and then you want to slam on your brakes, it doesn't make itself evident because they're up on the bridge and they got you, right?
Well, and again, like at the end of the day, I'll add to accountability, but accountability, responsibility, and respect for life. Those are the 3 that we're really pushing. Accountability is the main one this year. But when you wouldn't slam on those brakes if you knew you were doing the right thing. They're making a choice. And the difference between going 65 and 80 is getting to your destination within like 30 seconds quicker, over 5 miles. So it's not that big of a difference. And, the difference between surviving and death could be 20 miles an hour. So do the right thing, slow down, give yourself plenty of time, and get to your destination safely. There's really not, just that. Yeah. That's a simple,
leave earlier, right?
Leave earlier. I now at the county, I have an hour and 10-minute commute home, and it drives me nuts.
Yeah.
I used to have a 15-minute commute. Now I got an hour and 10 minutes with traffic. I put it on an audiobook.
Yeah.
I got 10 and 2.
Right.
Just and there's no rush. I'm gonna get home, gonna cook a dinner. It's all gonna be good.
And in your position, you know that because you see it every day, that really it's only a short amount of time. You know what I mean?
Well, I can't stand hypocrisy either.
Yeah.
And there's no way that the director of traffic safety for the county can be going 90 down the freeway. So you better believe in my fully marked county vehicle, I'm going the speed limit,
Right.
because it's the right thing to do. You know, and or like it's just like, but going here, so going from the county, the government center to here, going down the 15 and then coming to Flamingo, just coming down to Flamingo, I was passed by over 200 cars because I was going the speed limit. My parents go back and forth between Eastern Washington and Vegas, and this is the first time they've been here for an extended period of time since the pandemic. And I go, my dad's afraid to drive here. He goes, it's nuts. And we got to get control over it. And, again, enforcement's not our first line of defense, but accountability is doing the right thing when nobody's looking. And if nobody's looking, then people might not be as accountable. So people are definitely looking in the next few weeks.
And it's up to the people to make the right choice to not speed. These troopers coming in, and there's so many different things that they can do, and it's great, right?
Well, and you also saw their appreciation and understanding and respect of what can happen to them on the job. This academy class was dedicated to Micah May, and every day was for Micah. And for them to be in the academy when that happened, and for them to understand what they're about to, put them through themselves through, and what they're about to put their loved ones through, being a trooper or a parole and probation officer, it's important for us to again be, understand that they're out there to do some great work. And
they put their lives on the line every single day to provide a safer place for us.
Absolutely. And Nevada's a safer place because of all the women and men at the Nevada State Police in all the different divisions, and we definitely need some more of them. And the academy staff does a great job getting them prepared, and we're lucky to have each and every one of them.
And we're going to have Ann Carpenter on here maybe next week, and to talk about the women and of Nevada Highway Patrol and things of that nature. And we have some great photos for that too. It's important to know that it's not just the men; it's the women that also do it as well.
Absolutely. And during my time as PIO, it was split pretty much 50-50 between who I got to work with the women and men of the Highway Patrol, and some of the most dedicated individuals. Highly educated, most brilliant people. Doesn't matter at DPS. You're going to get a good bunch, regardless of who it is.
Well, what do you think of that?
That was pretty good.
So let me tell you, it was great. This is really important, okay? One of the things on the Trooper Talk, like I said, that we talk about is the fact of getting to the inside and understanding how people think and when it comes to the troopers and stuff. And so understanding you and, getting into your mindset about you and your sister and your mom and your dad, and all this stuff, I know everybody appreciates. And so, and as well, coming here and opening up about different things that you're doing for the city, it's great. And we wish you the greatest and the best.
Thank you so much, Neil.
Yeah. So we'll just wave at this camera right over here, and then we'll tell everybody to slow down, right? You know what I mean? Like, why don't you give everybody a good message right there? All right, I'll just wave, and you just give everybody a good message.
At the end of the day, we need everybody to slow down, always drive sober, and buckle up, and we'll get to 0 fatalities. Thank you so much.